Hello there, this is Craig Hain. My students call me Dr. Dell, and I thank you for responding to our email to watch this video. The discussion on this video is going to be about how to deliver a superlative math education program that really works for any student. Now, I'm talking about middle and high school students or post-elementary mathematics, and that's what this video is going to discuss. Now, the facts of the matter are what you need to know if you're going to deliver this superlative math education are the answers to three questions. The first question is, what math content should you be teaching to your student? That's a very important question, and of course there's just almost an unlimited variety of content issues and structures that you could do. Then the question is, well, why is this the right content for your student? And then how can you best teach this content or deliver it to your student? And if you cannot answer any of these three questions, then you're not likely to have an optimal program and probably not a superlative program either. And that's what this video is all about, trying to help teach you. Now, there are a couple of ways that I can help you answer these questions. The first way is you could visit our website, triadmathinc.com, which is a link below this video you could go to. And there are many videos discussing the various aspects of these questions. There's a lot of tabs there and there's a lot to learn. And I found that a lot of people can tend to get lost because it's not a linear path through. There are a lot of different things to think about. So a much more efficient way would be for you to read my book, Teaching Math. Now, this book discusses these three questions and a lot more in quite a bit of detail. This is the book I'm talking about. The title is Teaching Math. The subtitle is A High School Math Curriculum That Works for All Students. And this can include middle school because it's really aimed at post-elementary math. And this is our website again. This is the 2011 edition, and there are some geometric objects and numbers down below that are designed to stimulate your curiosity of somebody that might see the cover of this book. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is I am going to give you a preview discussion of this book. And then after you watch my preview discussion, if you should decide to read it, there's a few things you can do. Of course, one is you could go buy a copy, and you could get a Kindle copy at Amazon. You could get a Nook copy at Barnes & Noble if you like to read these things in that format. You could get a printed copy at our website, and that's what this is. This is the printed copy that you would buy from our website. But another way is I will give you a PDF version of this book at no cost at all. And I'm going to explain later in this video how you can get that. It's very easy for you to get. It'll be delivered online, of course. And then you can read it out of your Acrobat Reader, and it won't cost you anything at all. And it's exactly the same material that you would get in the other formats that you might choose. So you have a lot of choices here. Now, the first thing I want to do then is to give you a preview of this book, Teaching Math. And as I said, this is the book. It's really a very short book. It's only about 130 pages long. And I want to talk about it for you. This is the table of contents. Of course, there's a preface where I tell my story. And part of my story is not unlike many students' stories, but then part of it is quite different. And so you may find that interesting. And in chapter 1, I start right off discussing what I call the problem that we all have today. And the problem is our failing high school math students and curriculum. And so let me just leap ahead here in the book to chapter 1. And it's part of the section I call the problem. So here's chapter 1, titled Our Failing High School Math Students and Curriculum. As you know, the statistics today regarding math education in the United States are very, very dismal, just about any way you look at them. And I believe there are three fundamental reasons why that is true, and it all has to do with our current high school math curriculum and the way it has evolved. The first problem is it is much too compartmentalized. The second problem is it does not utilize the power tools of mathematics today properly, the way that ought to be used in both the practice and teaching of math. And then it's not interactive and self-paced enough. And these are very critical issues as well. So these are the three issues in a nutshell why our curriculum is failing our students and why they're failing. And I discuss that in quite a bit of overview detail here in chapter 1 so that you can see the reasons behind that. And of course, I'm going to talk about how it's evolved. And I also offer then you a correction for this, a curriculum that does work. And I use one that I've developed and that you may or may not be interested at some point in the future using as a model for you to follow, whether you use mine or whether you develop it yourself. Now, in chapter 2, I start out with some facts and ideas. And in chapter 2, I talk about something that I have learned over decades, really, of successfully teaching math to students at all levels, from 8th grade and shop math and industrial math and adult education through college, engineering school, and graduate school. And I might say high school. I've taught high school too. All of these things I've learned, and these are the three principles that I've found that you have to apply no matter what level you're at. Whether you're teaching beginners, very young children, whether you're teaching post-elementary, like we're talking here, high school math, or whether you're teaching college math or graduate school math. Always this has to happen. The three components of the triad are the psychology of the student, which is critical, and that's where we're really failing today a lot. The reason we're failing is the other two components. One is the way we teach math, I call it the pedagogy, and the third then is the content, and that is what we're teaching and how inappropriate so often is. And that's all discussed then in chapter 2 in a fair amount of detail, because if you don't follow the steps of the triad, if you don't meet all of those principles, you are probably not going to be delivering a very successful program to your student. Now, in chapter 3, I talk about the power tools of modern mathematics. As you know very well, our technology has evolved tremendously in the last 50 years. And there's all kinds of things today that you can do when you're solving math problems that you need to know about and tools you should be using. And this applies to teaching math. It's just as important in teaching math as it is in practicing math. For example, if you were teaching carpentry today and you didn't teach people how to use the power tools of carpentry, well, how good a job do you think that you would be doing teaching them, and how effective would it be? So I talk about several power tools that were developed over the last decade, some of which you know about and probably some of which you may not know about. So chapter 3 is very well worth reading before you do anything else. Now, it turns out today that there are a lot of mathematical educational resources available. Some are very good, some are mediocre, and some are very bad. And I talk a lot about that in this chapter 4, and I think that you need to, as a math teacher, at any level, whether you're a homeschool teacher or a regular high school teacher, you need to know about this. Some of these resources you no doubt will already know about, and I suspect that there's a couple in here that may be new to you, and you will want to learn about them. One in particular was not introduced until 2009, and I think you ought to know about it. Now, for you homeschool teachers, particularly those of you that are getting started teaching math, or maybe you struggle with it and you're doing it now and you're having trouble, and we're talking about the middle and high school level, chapter 5 will be the most relevant. This is where I talk to you about what I believe are the proper ingredients for a 21st century math curriculum. And I use my own 10-tier program I've developed for my own students that I am involved in teaching, and it could end up being you as well, in explaining what this is and demonstrating what it is. Now, it's the first 6 tiers that are of most interest to most students, because that takes you all the way through the math you need for engineering and science, calculus and differential equations at the high school level. And the first 2 tiers are what most of you today are interested in, because that's where you begin. All students should start out with what I call the foundation, which is my first 2 tiers, and that's discussed in chapter 5, and so you need to definitely read about that, and that's what you'll be most interested in. And that is, quite frankly, where many of you will stop when you're reading this book. I might add, I have a lot of what I call interludes, where I talk about specific math concepts and how to teach them and what I do. And they are accompanied by videos that you will go to on my website, links here to those videos. And so that's all covered in chapter 5. And that's the first 75 pages. And quite frankly, that's all most of you need to know to do the things and make the decisions you need today to get started. I will just briefly then tell you about the rest of the book. In chapter 6, I talk about the high school math ed delivery system as it's evolved and as it exists today. And of course, it is the source, a great source of the problem we have. And fortunately, the good news is for homeschool teachers, you can escape these problems and overcome them very, very easily, very cost effectively, if you avoid the standard curriculum. And I explain all that in here. Then in chapter 7, this book is actually written then for a broader audience than homeschool teachers. It really is aimed ultimately at reforming our mathematics curriculum that we teach in our high schools. And so I talk about that problem, and in particular how if we would revise the way we teach math in our high schools, it could be a financial salvation. Because as we all know, many of our schools today are in financial difficulties for other reasons, and there are things that I believe we could be doing that would improve the quality of our education and reduce its cost simultaneously. And I talk about that in chapter 7, particularly true in mathematics, although I don't have any optimism that's going to happen in the near future because of the great entrenched interest we have today. And that's discussed somewhat in this book, and we'll talk about it other places. In chapter 8, I talk about the fact that in the modern economy we live in today, becoming matherate, as I call it, or the matheracy, is a very, very important thing. Back in the old economy, if you were literate, that was sometimes adequate. Most adults today are, are not matherate, that most adults today know very little mathematics. In fact, if you put your student through our foundation course, which takes about 3 months, covers algebra, geometry, and trig, and how to use a scientific calculator, they will know more mathematics than 95% of adults in the United States today, based on my pretty extensive experience in teaching adults in industry. So that's what I talk about in this chapter. Then I talk about the benefits that our society would accrue, particularly in the United States, if we were to reform our math education system. And I compare this to what our international competitors are doing, and we talk about that in chapter 9. Again, you may not care about this particularly, but this book is written for a broader audience, and I think that's a very important point. And then after page 100, I have what I call a coda, and that is actually materials aimed at teachers or parents that have, wherever their students are going to school, that are future potential mathematicians, students that might want to become mathematicians. Boy, are we shortchanging them today. It is just an absolute travesty what our high schools are doing to these students. And that's one reason why our schools today, our graduate schools, are filled up with foreign students and not U.S. students. We are just doing a horrible, horrible thing for our future mathematicians in this country. And I tell in this chapter what we can do about it. There is a solution to the problem, but it's dramatic, it's quite different, and in fact, it's something I talk about in my top 4 tiers that I have developed, and I discuss that extensively in chapter 11, exactly what we can and should do about it. And that is, of course, probably one of my personal interests in all of this, although I'm very concerned about teaching all students the appropriate math they need to know for what they're going to be doing. So this is my book, Teaching Math. And I think that if what I have said about the contents interests you and you see that it would be of value, then of course you need to get yourself a copy of it. Now, you can buy it, as I told you earlier. Amazon has it, Book Barnes & Noble. You can go to my website and buy it. But I'm going to give you a free PDF version of it with my compliments, no cost at all, if you will simply go to the box over on your right and enter your name and your email address, and then I will immediately have a PDF copy delivered to you via email online. So it doesn't matter what time of day or night this is or what time of the week it is. If it's a holiday, it makes no difference. If you sign up, you will immediately get a PDF copy of this book, and you can begin to read it immediately once you get it. And that's what I hope that you do. And I might add, you can share this with other people, but I would recommend you just send them to this particular link and let them watch this video and decide if it's something they want to invest their time in. Whenever you buy a book like this, it isn't so much how much you spend on it, it's the time you invest in it. Is it worth your time reading it? What are you going to get out of it? That's what I'm trying to tell you, is what you're going to get out of it. Now, in addition to this book, once you enter your email address and your name, you're going to be in our database, of course. And then I'm going to start sending you a series of emails with other information that will supplement what's in the book. It's information that's not on our website when you come to it, generally speaking, because I want it for people that already know something about the subject and people that have either read my book or are reading my book. And of course, needless to say, if you decide that none of this interests you and you don't want any more emails from me, you just can opt out anytime. Every email I send you will have an opt out or an unsubscribe link at the bottom, and so you can discontinue anytime you wish to. I will also tell you that I'm going to have some video conferences that we're going to invite you to join so that you can ask questions or bring up issues or make comments. And so that's going to happen also on an occasional basis, and you'll be informed of those by email and invited to attend. I'll probably record them and give you access to recorded teleconferences or video conferences that we have. Now, the facts of the matter are, my goal in what I'm doing with this book and this message is to have you as a potential teacher or a teacher, to learn all that you need to know, to deliver your student the very best possible math education that today's modern technologies make possible. I mean, you don't teach math today the way you did 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. You could, but you shouldn't. There are so many better ways to do it today, and that's what I talk about in my book and in the various videos I've got on my website and what's in my program that is unique. There's nothing like it today out there. There's a lot of resources that I've talked about in my book, and they're good resources, but they're not what I do and not what I recommend that you do. Now, eventually, some of you are going to decide that you want to actually avail yourself of some of the materials that I have available for you, because these materials will empower you to deliver a very superlative math education to your student, even if you don't know any math yourself. You're going to be able to give your student a better math education than anything they could get today if you send them to the best private school in the country. And you'll see why. I explain that on my book and on the website, and you're going to learn all about it. It's important you understand that, though. You don't take my word for it. You got to know what I'm going to teach them and why we're going to teach them and how we're going to teach them. What's going to happen? Now, I only expect you to enroll your student in any of my materials until after you do understand what, why, and how. You could do it immediately. You can go to my website right now and you can enroll your student in the foundation course. It's less than $100. It teaches them all the algebra and geometry and trigonometry and how to use a scientific calculator that they ever need for practical math. It gives them a foundation for future math, and it's less than $100. Best deal you'll ever find anywhere. But I really don't want you to do that until you know why you're doing it. So at least spend a few hours reading my book and bringing yourself up to date on what, why, and how. I want you to know why it's the best. So therefore, I want you, if you don't want to read it on a Kindle or a Nook or read a hard copy, go get your PDF copy right now. It's free. Just go over to the right, enter your name. I believe that our mutual goal should be to deliver the very best possible, appropriate, that's underlined, math education to your student that is possible and cost effective. You need to do it in the most cost effective way possible. We're all under financial stress these days, or most of us are. And I can tell you right now, you can deliver the best, really, math education, middle and high school level that's appropriate for your student, and you can do it very cost effectively, and probably much more cost effectively than anything you're trying now. So, I believe that mathematics is one component in helping your child achieve great success and satisfaction in today's modern economy. And of course, I think that's part of being a successful citizen. I have 3 children that are all out in the world doing great, and one of the components has been they understand mathematics. Now, that's not the only thing. I fully agree with that. There's other things you're teaching them that are probably equally, maybe more important, but this is certainly a very important component. So, if you agree with that, go get your copy of Teaching Math. Sign up for it right away. Get the PDF of it. And hopefully you and I will then be meeting in the future in some way, either directly or indirectly. I may see you on a forum or a teleconference we have, and hopefully you will be very successful in teaching your student math. There is no reason not to now with the modern tools and materials that are available. So this is Dr. Dell signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I wish you the very best in your future success with your student. Bye-bye.